There's a bunch of different assets you can use to get people to click on your website in Google search. One of the top ones is the meta description. When a page or a post shows up on Google search, you have the title of the page or the post, and then right below that, you have the meta description. And if you have a website or you've done SEO before, you have probably written one of these meta descriptions. You want people to click on your page, on your post in Google search above the other ones. You want to get those juicy clicks. And you probably have also realized that some of the time, Google doesn't actually use what you write. You write a meta description, Google doesn't actually use it. And so there have been several experiments that test, are Google's meta descriptions better than the ones that you write? That's what I am sharing on this episode of the podcast. This is called, Does Google Write Better Descriptions Than You? It's from the 21 SEO Experiments article that I'm always sharing on the show. I love this article. The link for this is in the description for this episode. Let's jump into it. So this starts with a very similar introduction that I gave. If you've been in SEO for any amount of time, you've probably written hundreds, if not thousands of meta descriptions. But you're cool with that. Those countless hours of meta description writing are time well spent. With the importance of click-through rate on rankings, any improvements made to your website's SERP snippets via custom hard-coded descriptions will surely lift up results. If you don't know what that means, your result getting clicks is a positive signal for Google. Your page or post in Google search getting clicks makes that page or post perform better. There's a ton of different variables that go into it. This is one of them, but it's a big one. You want to be clicked on in Google search. It's very important. And so you want to make improvements that help your website perform in the SERP, in the search engine results page. So the post continues, we write our own meta descriptions because, after all, we know our business and audience best, which means our descriptions have got to outperform Google's auto-generated versions, right? Unfortunately, no. In an experiment, the team at Search Pilot found that Google's auto-generated descriptions outperformed custom meta descriptions by a factor of 3%. By the way, I asked Grok 3 just now to do a deep search on this figure to see if this figure is still accurate. And it is. This is the latest number of how much better Google's auto-generated descriptions perform than the ones that we write ourselves. But there's some more lessons in this. So this is the experiment that they did, and it's actually pretty interesting. They used the data no snippet attribute on the body element of half of their pages. So they were able to split test Google-generated descriptions, the control, against their own custom descriptions, the variant. And this attribute, the data no snippet attribute, it tells Google not to use this text as a snippet in the search engine results pages. Google has a bunch of different directions like this for its robots. You can see them in the documentation at Google Search Central, but this one says, don't use this text in the search engine results pages. Don't use it in the snippets. And so by using that, Search Pilot, doing the experiment, was telling Google, don't use this for the meta description. Don't use this text for the meta description. And they did that on half of their pages, and the other half, Google was able to run wild. So the story continues. Very soon after the test began, click-through rate trended downwards, and within 2 weeks, the test had hit statistical significance for a negative result. In short, Google's descriptions performed better. What can you take from this? Well, Google has access to a hell of a lot of user data. This data advantage helps Google know what users are looking for and create descriptions that are more relevant to users than those we might write ourselves, even if Google's own descriptions are scraped and often read like junk. This is reinforced by studies that have shown that Google ignores the meta description tag for 63% of queries. So when I said Google is ignoring what you write, it's ignoring your meta description 63% of the time. We can assume Google does this when the meta description created by the website owner is not entirely relevant to the user's query, and Google thinks it can do a better job. Search Pilot study indicates that Google does. It does do a better job. But does this mean you should do away with meta description writing and leave it all to Google? Not entirely. Other research suggests that Google rewrites meta descriptions less for short, normally high-volume keywords. In fact, for the shortest queries, Google will shop the actual meta description at least half of the time. This indicates in around 50% of the searches, your meta description will be best. I'm going to tell you why I believe this is in a second, but I'm going to finish this story. So the story ends with advice from the person who wrote it. And the advice is continue to write custom crafted meta descriptions for your most important content, but do away with meta descriptions where the traffic potential for your content is lower. Google will do a decent job of creating relevant descriptions that are statistically proven to outperform yours. Here is my advice. Have a target keyword. You've heard me say this before. Have a target keyword. Put it in your page title at the beginning of the page title. Put it at the beginning of your meta description. Write a meta description. Put it at the beginning of your meta description. And I'm going to explain why in a moment. Put it in your URL slug, your target keyword in your URL slug. Put it in your H1, your top header, and put it at the beginning of your first sentence. Here is the thing. Google is less likely to write its own meta description for a high volume keyword. Why is that? Because in order to rank for these high volume keywords, you have to have the keyword in the places that I just described. And one of those places is at the beginning of the meta description. When you have your keyword at the beginning of the meta description and at the beginning of the page title, your page is a lot more likely to satisfy search intent. People who search the keyword, they see what they searched at the beginning of the meta description, the beginning of the page title. They say, this is for me, and they click it. And in that case, Google doesn't have to write its own. And in order to rank for the most high volume keywords, they're very competitive. You need to have the keyword in the right places that I just described. And so you're naturally going to have the keyword at the beginning of the meta description. And that's why for high volume keywords, Google is less likely to write its own meta description. But does this mean, like the author writes, that you shouldn't write your own meta description for lower volume keywords? No, because as I've said so many times on this show, most of the keywords with the highest purchase intent, the highest use intent, they're lower volume. There's just naturally less people at the bottom of the funnel, the bottom of the search funnel, who are looking to convert. Those are the juicy keywords to go after because that's where the purchases happen. And even though these keywords are less competitive, you still want to win. The thing is, most people ignore these keywords. And so Google doesn't have a lot of pages or enough pages targeting these keywords. So what it has to do is it has to find an existing page, craft its own meta description that might satisfy the search intent for that low volume purchase intent keyword that everyone is ignoring. Google has to create its own because the website owners aren't creating pages for these purchase intent keywords. But what you do is you target these purchase intent keywords and you put the keyword in the places that I described. And one of those places is at the beginning of the meta description. And that makes you most likely to rank for these purchase intent keywords, these lower volume purchase intent keywords where the conversions happen. And at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want the conversions. So what do we learn from this? We learned that if you don't write a meta description for that keyword, there's a good chance that Google is going to be able to create its own meta description that satisfies search intent way better than whatever you wrote. That's number one. Number two, to rank for your keywords, put the keyword in all the places that I described. Page title, meta description, H1, URL slug, beginning of the first sentence. Number three, Google is more likely to use the meta descriptions that people write for higher volume keywords. And that's because they're more competitive. People are more likely to write meta descriptions that satisfy search intent for those high volume keywords. And number four, go after keywords where the conversions happen. I call these compact keywords, the thing on my shirt. And I have an entire SEO program dedicated to this. It's called Compact Keywords, compactkeywords.com. This is an SEO strategy that gets you direct customers, users, warm leads. It's people who are searching Google, cash in hand. They are looking for what you are selling. This method of SEO works faster than normal SEO, way faster, in fact, and it's a lot less work. You don't need as many backlinks and you don't need as much copy. You don't have to write 3,000 word blog posts anymore. And it's a full 0 to 100 SEO course. Even if you're a beginner, super relevant. And if you're a veteran, there's a good chance you're doing outdated strategies. No offense to you, but a lot of these outdated strategies, they're not working as well anymore. They've been hit with the Google Helpful Content Update, or less people are going to your pages and instead they're going to ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or now DeepSeek. These pages, as I've talked about on this podcast and as I've shown on the podcast, these compact keywords landing pages rank on AI chatbots. So it's this full main program crazy program. And I also give 15 weekly keyword breakdowns from everything from e-commerce to local to services to SaaS. It is a baller program. You're going to love it. I spent 11 months making it. This strategy is being used by experts at some of the biggest companies in the world, like Microsoft, Anduril, Slack, Deloitte, Omnicom, Amazon. There's so many, tons of local businesses, tons of burgeoning startups and SMBs. You're going to love it. It's available at compactkeywords.com. That is episode 599 of my daily digital marketing podcast. 599 episodes in a row, days in a row. Tomorrow is 600. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about on episode 600 of the show tomorrow, but it's going to be good. Thank you so much for watching if you watched on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. If you listened on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.